Day. So we are here in the Women in the Metaverse treehouse where we come and actually have mind elevating conversations, sharpen each other's iron, and just about however you want to describe it. But we come in here and have really great conversations. This month we're talking all about variations, or this season better yet, we're talking about variations. Last month we talked about the variations of ourself and how that makes us valuable, and how when we understand the variations of the future, we can really start to kind of control which variation we live through. And I thought with this month being Black History Month, it would be amazing to try to keep that conversation going and talk about the variation of history, because there's a lot that we can dive into when it comes to history and the variations of history. So with that being said, the way this month will look, today we're going to just, you guys know I like to make it quick, just kind of give you a grand idea on what that would be. And then next week we'll talk about actually variations of love. That will be a special topic kind of off of our curriculum, but it is going to be the day before Valentine's Day. And I have a special treat where I actually am going to be doing a DIY how to make rose water. So if your significant other gets you roses, if you get yourself roses, get you some roses this Valentine's Day, and then come to my class that Sunday and we'll make our own rose water, which I absolutely love. I think it's one of the best facial toners and just things that I love. I don't put much on my face, but putting that on my face, I swear, like brightens it, and you can make a nice little combination so that it leaves it nice and moist and everything. So but we'll talk about variations of love and love language and have a kind of like a fun conversation, because there's different variations of love, right? And then we'll get back onto topic about the variations of history. And on the 20th, we'll talk about the variations of history makers, those change makers, the pioneers, those that we learn about in the history books. And not only them, but the impact that they have made on our society. And why? Because then the week after that, on the 27th, we'll be talking about the variations of making history, right? These storytellers, those that are in this moment now, making history, so that we can all understand that, hey, in this moment, no matter what, we're a part of history. And so how can we use this time to our advantage to really make the most of being a part of history? And I think, there's like that saying where they say, you have to understand where you've been to understand where you're going. And that is such a true message. And that's exactly what we're going to be focused on today, which is just that message. Because if nobody's ever told you, that's where you need to start. No matter what you do, it always starts with self, right? It's like, I love pulling a bunch of other quotes. You guys know that's my favorite thing, because I think it's citing, where did you hear this from before that? I'm a person, when I hear things, I can hear it another way that just sticks with me. And I love that Tupac saying where he says, you can't change the world. If you want to change the world, you have to change yourself, right? Because again, there's so much power within that. We understand the power of our mindset, but some people don't really understand that, because how can we? That's something that's inward. It's not something that we can see or really understand. It gets real philosophical. But when we understand that, okay, well, it starts with us no matter what. It starts with the decisions that we make. It starts with why we even make those decisions. It starts with why we even think about what we think about when we're making a decision. And all of that comes from so much more, like things that our parents, right? Because one of the things that I even say, when it comes down to learning yourself, you also have to take the time to get to know your parents, right? Your mom and your dad, and whether you have a good or a bad relationship with them. Scientifically, it takes both of them to even make you. So at that point, if there is a void anywhere, you have to understand how that affects you. And then if you understand you have to do that for your parents, you have to take it even further to understand their parents, to understand where they came from. And when you continue to do that for a few generations, that's how then you'll start to see, like, wow, things run deep, right? There are some things that we can see a pattern on. There are some things that you'll start to learn, like, man, one of my great aunts did this, so I'm not going to make that same mistake. We can learn from each other so much so that we stop repeating history, because there's another saying that I love, which is history does not repeat itself, people repeat itself. And it's so true. And it's like doing the same thing over and over. That's insanity. Yet people will do that and, hope for the best and pray for the best and do everything except for do better in order to get better. And so even for my kid now, that's something that I'm always teaching him right now. Like, if you do good, you get good, right? But if you do bad, then you get bad. Because that's as simple as it gets. So if you're doing bad, you can't expect good. There's not a miracle in the world, and I'm not gonna say that because God is great, but you have to put in that work as well. And that's why, again, we talked about the variations of the future and how we can understand the different variations that can happen and the different things that can even make them happen, so that we can now prevent things from happening, or put our ducks in a row and be working at making that happen. And again, that's how we start to control this. So when we talk about how we're in history right now, like literally we have a book. A lot of people don't even realize we're living through the fourth industrial revolution. And it's crazy to me because we learned about the first, second, and third in history books when I was in school. And now here I am as an adult, and they have a book about the fourth industrial revolution out now, written by the world leaders that are actually creating this idea and new concept and pushing forward this next era of revolutions, I should say. And it's amazing to have the book while we're living through it, because it's been building up to this, right? Like I said, this is the fourth time we've done it. This is not the first revolution that we've lived through. And I think that's one of the things that I always try to tell people, like, just because this is the first time that you've done it as a society, this is not the first time that our society has evolved and that our society has made changes. It's just the first time for us, for you. And sometimes, some people have an advantage where their lineage, their parents and their great-grandparents took advantage. So they have great examples of how to take advantage. And those, generations also left blueprints like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And if you do X, Y, and Z, then all you got to do is keep that going, right? And then history can keep going and keep living. And then that's why we also kind of run into these cycles as well, because once you learn a good equation, it's like, why mess that up, right? Some people have been thriving off of the systems that we have been living on. But there's others who haven't, who come from different situations like myself, who come from, a family that's never went to college or never had a business, and is known for having kids early and, kind of just being like a big, close-knit family, but, never really having anybody break that cycle and do more that helps just uplift the entire lineage to show that there is more. But every generation you can kind of see trying to start to do their own trying now. And so, again, that's why it takes you to understand what you're even fighting against for you to fight that fight. So when you start to look inward and start to look at yourself and your family members and those before you, and understand what that mission is, not only for your bloodline, but for the human race as well, because not only amongst our own family, we have the human race that we're all a part of. And again, that's why we always talk about the big mission and you wanting to make sure that your mission is aligned with the big mission. And that's why we have these kind of conversations, because sometimes, life starts happening and we start moving and then it's like, oh, well, I'm off to the races, and you kind of get sidetracked, right? Or you get so far into your plan that it starts to kind of take you into different directions. but we have a clear direction, right? Like I said, we're living in the fourth industrial revolution, where there's a clear book about everything that entails. The people that created that book also have a YouTube video and an Instagram and post on it every day, just like everybody else. But it's those that are taking the time to pay attention that are going to be able to understand the big mission and align their mission with the big mission, so that we're all moving in the right direction. And that's what it's all about. That's how you make an effective way of being a part of history, because we're living in it. Us coming in here every single Monday, opening up the space to say, hey, any woman, come meet us in the metaverse, or even men, right? We don't say only women. It's just we make the space to look welcoming to women, so that they see a familiar space. They see the wine glasses and the pedicure chairs, and they see it's a space dedicated to making women feel, welcome. And just by having that in the name, and having different women in here and leading the conversation. And then we have a men talk as well, and plenty of other kind of events for anyone, because we want to be just opening the door for anybody that sees this opportunity and wants to figure out how to be a part of it. And there were so many times I felt that way last week, which was when our podcast has officially reached 500 watches. So thank you guys so much for all watching. It's really amazing and greatly appreciated, because I don't share it much. I don't really post it on social media. So this is all organic, and it's really, really appreciated, because you guys come and watch or listen every week, and it's amazing. But also, I had actually have a YouTube video that I shared sometime last year, and somebody had watched it and then found me on Instagram and reached out and was like, I'm looking for a community, and I'm looking for more people. And it's all just reassuring, because every time we're making this content, I always tell people, even if nobody else comes to this space, even if nobody else is watching this podcast right now, we're still going to show up, and we're still going to put out substance, and we're still going to come and have these conversations and put it out there, because there will be somebody that's looking for this. And when they go looking, we'll be there for them to find it. And, that's where, again, we'll be able to dive further into this week about how that's powerful, because now we are the storytellers. We are writing our own history, and that's powerful, instead of giving somebody else the power to write your history. And that is one of the most powerful tools that you can, have, which is writing history and writing your own history and telling that story the way you want it to be told. And not only doing that, but showing it. You guys know that's what I'm all about. Hey, we're going to keep it transparent. And y'all see Tiny's over here swimming. We over here trying to work it out, figure it out, and we don't have it figured out all the way, right? But we are learning it together, and that's what history is all about. You learn about the good, the bad, and those that weren't afraid. And so this month, we're going to be talking all about it. We're going to dive into those that have blazed different paths and the way that it's impacted our society today. And we're going to talk about the ways that we can, do things as well to make that same impact while we are here now, and be those change makers and make history as well. And like I said, it is Black History Month, so we would definitely be sprinkling in some Black history. Now, you guys know we always like to keep this a very open space in general, but it's Black History Month, so we gotta have the Black special. And so and we'll continue to do that. I know there's a Spanish Heritage Month and a lot of different things that we'll continue to be able to celebrate here on this podcast. So that's what we'll be diving into this month. Like I said, I just wanted to give you guys a little tidbit to get excited, a little food for thought. Like I said, start with the history of yourself. If you've never done the history of yourself, I want you to go Google your last name. Google your last name. Find your grandparents. Find their last names. Google them, where you're from. See if you can figure out what that is, because I know Tiny and I have had a few conversations with us actually diving into our, lineages, and it's so cool when you find pictures. And I know she's actually done the whole tests and been able to like track cousins down, and I know my mom's done that before as well. For me, I was actually being able to like search my last names, because my last name actually had a little weight up in the slave trade days. I actually was able to pull up where my family, the plantation that they were on, because we were Native Americans here. So I don't know about everybody, but I know my people wasn't over here from no boat, but they're actually Native Americans, which is crazy, because my late grandmother, my Nana, she used to always say that, like, no, we're Native Americans, but it was like kind of taboo back in the day, because just like, no, you're black, you don't want to say you're this and you're that. But I always remember her saying that, like, nah, we're Native Americans. And so once, years later, you start doing some research and really dig into that and what it means, you really understand what that means. And it is so powerful. So, like I said, I know, Tiny, you've been kind of digging into that as well. So was there anything that you wanted to share that you thought was really cool when you started to do, like, knowledge of self and digging in to learn more about yourself and your family and where you come from?
Yeah, well, I had I have like a ancestry.com subscription or whatever. I have it paused right now, but I've been doing that since, I want to say, 2015. So it's been like a good little minute, not like hardcore, just like on and off. But yeah, so I found out a lot of stuff because I've been looking through like the census records, and I also subscribe to like a newspaper website, so you can actually like go back and everything was in the newspaper before, so I'd actually read like articles of stuff from when my family, all the way back to like when newspapers started. So
Right.
It's been really cool to see just people in my family. I know unfortunately, like my great grandma, all of her mother and all of her brothers and sisters basically died in a house fire, but I was able to find like the articles on that and see all the I found all the information for that. I found like the death certificates and stuff like that. So I know I come from a long line of like just regular farmers, regular old farmers. So.
But how impactful is that while you're over here starting your garden? Like, how much did that inspire you and push you last year while you were learning about them? Also, while you were like pregnant and starting your garden, it really seemed like it was all like, coming together almost.
Yeah, it was. I felt like it was like giving me faith, like that little push, like you could do this. There's no way you can't do this. Like you got it in your blood, so you have to be able to do this.
Exactly.
So I think, I definitely think learning about that just definitely helps me learn more about who I am as a person and like things that I might be good at. Because, like I said, it's in your blood, so. It's just certain things that, you'll be good at.
Right, you out there growing plants you don't even understand how to grow, popping up, and, got very ambitious, right? Because it's like inside, that you can. And outside, you're just working at expressing that, right? And that's what manifestation is all about. What they always say, like, bringing that thought into fruition. And it's like, people make it seem like it's this big, magical thing, but sometimes it's just literally planting that seed and watering it until we see it in that physical. And so I thank you for sharing that. That was really beautiful and exactly what we're talking about, right? Like, it really gave you that push. Like, even when you start looking at it and it's like, wow, this can be kind of stressful. What am I getting myself into? That's what it is. And so I was just having a talk with my husband earlier about how my family has always been very like artistic in different kind of ways. So that's definitely something we can see in our kid, and important for us too, and how we think about like educating him and just the ways that like our parents have poured into us, and his family comes from historians and people that are very, very highly educated. And then my family that's also very creative, very smart, but kind of more even like in a street smart kind of way in a sense. And so it's just very interesting, again, to even understand that and how it merges to make your kids, right? Because when we have kids, it even helps you understand them and how to raise them better. Because now Tiny is not only teaching herself, but now she's teaching her kids, right? And now these are those things that we can start pouring into them early, because we were able to do that. And the cool thing about you, Tanya, as well, is your mom is gardening too, and you guys are keeping that going. So it's definitely something that your entire family continues to do, and what a lot of us are striving for. So even if you don't feel like you have something as strongly connected as something like that, you can be the one to start that, and say, hey, this is what I'm going to create the blueprint for the next generation, so that they do have a good soil to come and plant their seeds in. And that's what I'm challenging everyone to do. But with that, I will also say is, once I read the the secret to success by Earl Nightingale, and he gave a beautiful analogy about, even with, because it was more about the mind, but he used the example about soil. And because we're talking about that, I'll kind of just pull that example with how you can't plant a corn seed next to a poisonous seed and not expect the poisonous seed to grow just like the corn would grow. So that's again why it's really important for you to reflect and understand the good that you come from as well as the bad, because we understand that it's all there. So I also think when it comes into this journey of like learning yourself, it is also not being afraid to acknowledge that, right? Not being afraid to acknowledge the wrongdoings that, previous generations have made, because I think that's where a lot of our previous generations kind of butt heads, right? They want to just kind of brush it under the rug and act like it didn't happen, but continue down the wrong path. Where it's like, hey, if we just acknowledge where everything went wrong, then we can really see how we can fix that, and then it won't happen again. And so, even you'll see that between like my generation and my mom, or, my generation and like great grandparents. Like I thinking about trying to talk to my great, aunts and uncles. It's just like, I know they're just in their ways, because they've been doing it for like almost I don't know, 60 years at this point, but again, everybody has their own variation of life that they have, their own understanding and their own future. It's not on us to change everybody else's. It's just on us to live our truth and be that example along the way. And that's why it's important. So that's like a good synopsis of all of the good juicy content that we'll be diving into this week. Like I said, next week we're going to take a quick pivot and talk about the variations of love, and talk about love language, have it a little fun, and just talk about what that even means. Do you know your love language? We'll talk about the different love languages that are out there. Maybe we'll find like a cool like quiz or something that everybody can do to see if you can like figure out your love language and something like that, because I'm all about it. And I want to start leaving fun things in here for all of our podcast watchers to come and do, because like I said, this space is open for you. If you're watching this replay, you can come into this treehouse and watch the replay as well. And you see, it's a good time. We have this first floor where sometimes we like to just sit on this bench, but we also have the pedicures on the top floor, the hot tub out there, and you can invite your friends, come in here, have a good time. And it's created just for you guys. So let me know if you guys want to see more or other spaces. I've been working on some new spaces. And if you want to see something in here, let me know. Otherwise, you guys know we'll be back every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, talking about the variations of our history this month. Hope to see you then. Peace.